You're not going to be a beer chugging, pot tripping, cigar puffing, drug dealing Christian?
No, I'm a God loving, Satan slamming, Jesus freaking world changer Christian, warrior for Christ.
Oh, that's tight.
Welcome back to Boys Bible Study. Hey, everyone listening to this, you guys are cool. Don't go to school tomorrow, okay? Just don't go to school tomorrow. I'm Ash. I'm here with my co-host,
Scott.
Joining us are very special guests today to talk about the 2016 Columbine shooting era Christian film, I'm Not Ashamed. Please welcome director and co-owner of Saturn's Core Audio and Video, William Hellfire. Hey, welcome, Bill.
Hey, thanks for having me on. This is really a crazy podcast. I really appreciate you thinking of it.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to have you on. We are big fans of your work, and there's actually a film you made in 1999 that makes you, I think, like the best person to talk to with regards to I'm Not Ashamed. So we're definitely going to get into that. But yeah, if you could please start just by introducing yourself and just like a summary of your work and what you like to do.
Sure. So in 1995, I got fired from my telemarketing job. And it was a part-time telemarketing job for Javalia Coffee. And when I got fired, I was in all these bands. I had a record label that did cassettes, a cassette label called Severed Lips Recordings. And I had a friend suggest that I send one of the cassettes, Disco Missile in particular, to Pete Jackalone, who was looking for music for a movie, which was Psycho Sisters. And Pete accepted 2 of the songs from Disco Missile onto the soundtrack, and I went to the premiere, and Mike Rosso, who owned Alternative Cinema, was selling VHS to mom and pop shops, and they really needed somebody to basically be their telemarketer. So I started telemarketing at Alternative Cinema and started watching the movies and realized how bad they were. And being I was such a horror fan myself, I asked if I could borrow a camera and use my rock and roll people to make movies. And Mike was just like, all right, like here's the title, Caress of the Vampire 2 Teenage Girl Ghoul Go Go. Because they did Caress of the Vampire 1, we're doing quite well with it. I said, as long as there's nudity and a little bit of blood and some, groovy ghoulies, you'll be fine. So I shot this movie, and it actually ended up on the new release wall at Tower. Weird, right? And it was like distributed through the Playboy catalogs and all these, Draculina magazine. And so all of a sudden I had this little mini career starting. So I just kept shooting movies, and it was very hit and miss. And I was doing a lot of like custom made horror movies for weirdos. And then I would sell them to people that thought they were real movies, but they're not. But there's naked girls in them, so they don't want to return them or anything. They're just like, ooh, okay. And I was doing this with Pete Jackalone a lot, doing a lot of custom films. And in 1999, when Columbine happened, Pete approached Joey Smack and myself and said, hey, let's do this movie. I wrote like this treatment and this small script and everything. And it read like Revenge of the Nerds. It was called The Day I Blew Up My School. So we didn't want to do it. We were just like, this is too on the nose. Like, we're really not interested in making this like Revenge of the Nerds thing. So Pete said, all right, circle back. How about you and Joey write it? And you can do it as subversive as you want it in your voice, and I'll produce it. And I'll agree to produce it as long as you and Joey star in it. So we were like, that's interesting. So I wrote a treatment. Joey wrote the script. I wrote my monologue. We did it in about 2 weeks, I think. And we shot, I think, over a period of 10 days in August, or maybe a little bit in July and then into August. And we finished the film and released it on Devil's Night of 1999. So it was only a few months after Columbine. And, usually I'd sell maybe like 30 25, 30 copies of a new movie at Chiller, and I sold 100, and people were just freaking out by it. And in January, I went to a convention in New York City for Fangoria. And again, we were selling gangbusters, just doing great. So it was very fun, awesome thing. I got filmed for a documentary that was playing in England on censorship, and drank a lot of whiskey as usual. Went home, and then Monday morning there was like pounding on the door, like insane pounding. And I get up and I think I had like boxer shorts on or something. I just like went upstairs and answered the door, and there's 2 policemen or detectives out there. And they're like, I'm like, what's going on? Like, is everything okay? They're like, yeah, we saw your movie. And I said, well, what did you think? And they said, it was all right. But we think we have a problem. And I was like, all right, well, come on in. So I let them in, naive as I am, and sit down. And they're like, we think you brought guns on the school grounds. And I was like, I did, actually. And they're like, oh, well, that's illegal. I was like, oh, I didn't know. They're like, all right, well, can you get the guns for us? And I said, sure. So I went and got the 2 real shotguns for them. And I said, one of them's broken. If you want to test them, you can do that. But one of them's broken. It's probably just blow up. And there were no shells in them or anything. And he was like, all right, well, you're going to have to get arrested. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding? Like, I'm not like a crazy criminal, Well, we'll get to that later. But yeah, so he said, you're going to get arrested. And by the way, there's camera crew here. So I was like, well, can I like gussy myself up a little bit? And they're like, sure. So I go downstairs and I tell my girlfriend at the time, who was still asleep, Misty Monday, I'm like, hey, take all the cash and bring it to the police station. You're going to have to bail me out. I'm getting arrested. She starts crying and freaking out, and then probably went back to sleep because I didn't see her for hours. So I got dressed. I went upstairs. I saw the cameras and kind of smiled, got put in the car, and I was a little nervous. And they're like, don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. You're going to be famous, kid.
Wow.
Wow, they actually told you that.
This is how the news works, man. It's like, so I get to the police station, and they shackle me to this pole, and I'm just sitting like hanging out with the receptionist. And an hour goes by, and I'm getting pretty bored, and I'm like pretty hungover. I need some sugar or something. And I'm like, yeah, can I have a coffee maybe? They're like, oh, we don't drink coffee here. I'm like, that's weird. That's really weird.
Yeah,
And then finally, like maybe 3 hours later, my girlfriend comes and bails me out. It was like $250. And I go home, and we were getting followed by some van, which is probably the news van. But it seemed like there were other cars following us around as well. And then I find out that Joey got arrested, and he had a butterfly knife in his pocket, so he got an extra fine. And then he comes over my house around like, I don't know what time it was, 6 o'clock. We got a rain that same very night, which is very odd. So we were home before 11, and we were on the news by then. So it was like Channel 12, Channel 7, Channel 5, like all these things. And Channel 5 made our footage black and white, like surveillance footage, and said copycat killers underneath. Like, so like I had people that I had been a bit estranged from, like disown me as a human being after that, because they just thought I was going to go shoot children or something.
wow.
So yeah, pretty crazy.
But they led you through it like a pageant.
Oh yeah, like totally. Yeah.
That's so funny.
So we find out. So the next day I get a lawyer, and I go to him, and he's like, I got all your information. I got your FBI jacket. And we're like, what? Like, I have an FBI jacket. And he's like, yeah, he's like, they didn't see any crime, but the local police wanted to investigate it anyway. Basically, they wanted to be on TV. They wanted to break the big case that would get on TV and get the promotion. And it worked. He ended up chief of police. So,
Wow.
Yeah, but anyway, so he said, don't talk to the cameras. They're not your friends. And had I known. I really should have made a media circus out of it, because then it would have been bigger, but I was just a suburban kid, and I was kind of, freaked out by it. I was very naive, even though I was in my mid-20s. And, so we just played it kind of low to the vest. And, the judge threw it out. We got community service. I worked at an animal shelter where Joey had to work for some horrible priest. And so I had fun. And then we started trying to market it. So we sold it independently. And then I started working for Media Blasters, and Media Blasters picked it up. And they did they were going to do a 10,000 piece pressing and this big deal with press kits and all this stuff. And at the last minute, all these stores backed out of it still in 2004. So it was a hard sell, it's major stores wouldn't have it, at least in the physical store. They'd have it on their website, but not the physical store. So it was very, very odd. And even now, when I started marketing it again last year, companies that were interested in it were sitting down having meetings about how to market this. And, even OCN Distribution was let's try not to make the cover too much of dead kids. Okay. Not a lot of dead kids on the cover. We don't care what you put in the inside, so it's always been a very touchy thing. And when we first did the film, we got a bunch of death threats from parents from Columbine children and such. But we also got a former teacher from Columbine wrote to us and said, as horrific as the movie is, he's it's really should almost be shown in every high school. So I felt, we did something pretty interesting here,
Well, yeah, that is something we're going to be investigating through this whole conversation is why is this subject so touchy? I mean, there's an instinctive answer to that. At the same time, we'll get into, but I'm Not Ashamed, the film we watched today. YouTube took down the trailer for 11 months for some reason. It's
wow.
People complained about it, and YouTube temporarily banned the trailer, and it wasn't reinstated. So it's I mean, this particular subject is so loaded even to this day. 20 years later.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. I think cheers to you and Joey and the crew for 4 months after Columbine, putting this thing. I think that was very prescient, honestly.
It's pretty wild that you can do that, but you can't do that in a studio setting, Right. And we did it run and gun. We didn't get permission to do anything we did. We just did it in a punk rock guerrilla way, and bang, it was edited a month after it was finished. So we basically finished the edit probably in September. And it's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Independent weirdos that are willing to do it.
Yes. Okay, so we've brought Bill on today to talk about. You could sort of call this a fetish film in its own way. This is. I mean, honestly, my mind is buzzing after watching this one. I think I speak for Scott when I say that, the show's been active for almost 2 years, over 2 years. We watch a new film every week. Still, something comes along and I'm wow, when I thought I've seen it all. In 2016, a film was released called I'm Not Ashamed. The central premise of this film is that it follows the life of the sort of famous Columbine victim, Rachel Scott. She was a victim in, of course, the Columbine High School shooting on April 20th, 1999, which, if you're our age and older, I mean, you certainly remember that. For our younger listeners, I mean, it still is this unfortunately iconic moment of American history that I'm sure you know about, and you've probably seen some iconography from it. Rachel Scott is a very interesting character, and a lot of people my age that I talk to who grew up Christian have experiences where in their youth group, in their church, in some way, they learned of her story. The essential premise, just to put it on the table before we get into the film, the legend goes that before she was shot by Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, they asked her in so many words, if she believed in God. She answered yes, and then she was shot.
Do you still believe in God?
You know I do.
Then go be with him.
This opens up a whole world of, media circusry, rewritings of American history, Christian iconography. I mean, this is
and merchandise too.
And merchandise. I was just looking at Columbine merch for like 3 hours before we got on this Zoom call this morning. Like my mind is like buzzing right now. Where do we start, Scott? Like what do we know about this film?
But I don't know. I am not sure where to start because of everything that we were looking at this morning. So Rachel Scott had a diary. She had a journal, and I don't know the extent of what the journal is, but that's only because I haven't bought the book that is based around the journal, because I just found out about it. But her narrative has been used, like you were saying, Ash, in youth groups and around the nation for nonstop since then, I guess. I was not aware how strong it was still going. The fact that this movie is coming out in 2016 is totally wild to me. It seems like way after the fact. But like we were saying, I mean, this is of all the many school shootings, this one is still treated as the most harrowing because that's how we've heard about it from the media ultimately. Like the media made the biggest deal about this one because it was the first big deal one.
Yeah, well, actually, Bill, what do you think about that? Like, I mean, I definitely have an answer inside, but, what is it about Columbine specifically? Like, I think it basically set up this archetype that, everyone's just been playing from since then.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, the reason that Joey and I made the movie that we made was because of the media's reaction to Columbine. And a lot of people don't understand that. They probably just think, well, we're just making fun of all these kids that got killed and because we're nasty punks. Okay, a little bit. But like, what really freaked us out was how the media camped out on the lawns of the families' houses waiting to get these grieving parents to walk out or grieving kids to walk out. And how the television sort of like transformed itself to just like the eye on Columbine. Like, I think like programming was like shutting down and they were just showing long newscasts of Columbine stuff. And they were showing it over and over and over, like re-traumatizing the people that went through it like over and over and over again. Same as 9/11, really.
Yeah.
And there was a particular article that was like in People, I think, that played out the 13 victims and just gave these really like, oh, this kid liked his car. He's the car kid. Like, that's all he really was. They gave this little short. It's not like they did any big piece on them, This guy liked his mom's cooking. Oh, we don't know anything about this kid. So that's one kid that like the parents are like, don't tell anybody who you are, in the movie. That's where we're just parodying what they already gave us. We just went through and said, oh, this is this kid, this is the jock, just made all this kind of simple connection to it to make fun of like how everybody was portrayed, really. And that necessarily wasn't the case in reality, like people weren't that cookie cutter. And especially this movie shows that in a pretty interesting light.
Yeah, so it's like, so we have this happening. On one hand, we have the stage set for what was at that time, a very tragic. I mean, obviously still is tragic. It's just that now we see this play out like literally once a month. So it's like, it's
and in larger scale.
Right. It would not at all. It'd be far from the most lives lost in a mass shooting in America since then, of course. But yeah, not only do we have the Christian girl, the jock, almost like the Breakfast Club of like victims of a mass shooting, we also have these two teens Eric and Dylan, who, I mean, the visual iconography of them wearing the black shirt that says the word wrath in red letters while being shot on school surveillance footage. The stage was set. So we have this story playing out in the media, which is like, I mean, like it just, they're vultures, they're buzzards. Like, it's like despicable, just objectively the way they were treated. At the same time, in the story of Rachel Scott, I noticed, I've read so much about Columbine this morning, which I'm not like a true crime person, but I just found myself like in a hole about this morning. But, a lot of the victims, what was remembered about them is they were Christian, not just Rachel Scott. There was a lot of outwardly Christian kids who were unfortunately victims in this. But so I would assume then that the Christian community was a majority, at least, in the way it was presented in this community. But Rachel Scott's story goes over this motif we see constantly in Christian films, which is this sort of like desire for martyrdom. The Rachel Scott story is like the perfect Christian martyr story. I think that's why it's such a youth group favorite to this day.
Of course, yeah.
It's incredible. It's like, and not only that, Christians still feel, I mean, their films are sort of marginalized because their films, even though they are in some ways still a cultural majority, their films are not. They don't have the cultural upper hand. Their films aren't really acknowledged.
They're more or less kept within the community.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So here we just have this crazy push-pull of dynamics between like a member of a majority cultural group who was killed, who was martyred, and this leads to a feeling where the group feels marginalized. Yet we have these school shooters who were part of like a socially marginalized group. It's just like it's just crazy.
There's
like
a lot
of here.
What I have to say about this movie, just first and foremost, for people to really understand what it is, it's one of the most insidious, like Christian propaganda movies that could be made because it's made so well. It is made above, it's better than a Lifetime for Women movie, which is what I thought it was going to be.
Yep.
It's very close to like a Hollywood teen movie. It has that feel.
Yeah.
Like where it's the production value and the acting is there. It's still corntastic, like still misses the mark on what teenagers really act like 100%, but it's pretty close. And it doesn't necessarily punch you over the head with like cookie cutter stereotypical kids. Like I can see through a lot of it, but I think that, the majority of casual film watchers probably are very, very, very moved by this. And, I just wanted to, like, when the film opens with her as a young girl and the family struggling because the father left. So it's not a perfect Christian world, right? And they all have to pray so that they can get the things they need now because they don't have half their income. And she goes to Salvation Army and picks out this cute little hat. And of course, my eyes start tearing. I'm like starting to cry, because not only is this adorable, but where this is going. Like she's gonna die. Like we know that. And guess what? I'm gonna kill her. I'm the one that kills her. I kill the Bible girl,
Yeah.
So I don't know. Am I still a Satanist? Am I Christian now? Like I'm a card holding Satanist.
Oh wow.
And I don't know. I cried during this movie, so I don't know if they're going to take this card back.
Go for the Satanic Temple.
Yes.
We've had Lucian Graves on before.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Aaron and I have
meet
been
Lucian.
up there. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Very cool.
Cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, no, you're right. This film is quite sophisticated as far as the standards of what we watch. The films that we cover on the show run the gamut from our favorite homeschool family, the Hayes Wrights, who just film movies with their kids in their backyard. We love them. On the other hand, on the extreme other hand, this movie is one of the bigger budget, more sophisticated films we've watched. The God's Not Dead franchise is also relatively high budget and sophisticated, but this one still really takes the cake because, it sets up like you know what's going to happen to this girl. Like it paints the most heart-wrenching picture of this girl who you know is going to die, and I just haven't seen something like that in Christian cinema. It's
am I the only one that's
crazy.
crying? Did you guys lose it?
There were some parts that I felt a bit emotional. I was definitely trying to disassociate as much as possible while watching.
I'd say the stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, please.
Oh, I was going to say the stuff that I got most emotionally caught up in was her relationship with the boyfriend who ultimately lets her down. I found that to be the most realistic thing in the movie. Like the way he's like, oh, we don't really have to label this, do we? He's like kind of a shitbag. And like him putting his puka shell hemp necklace on her too. I was like, this is so real.
It's grooming. He's grooming.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, you're right. Honestly, yeah.
Yeah, this is how he was definitely he's like, oh, this is really important to me and everything, but I still want to get laid.
Yes. And literally a line from him in the movie is, there's a lot going on behind those eyes. You should try out for the lead of my play.
Rachel has this boyfriend named Alex who she admires because he's 2 years older than her and the head of the drama department of which she likes to participate. Amazing scene where he basically like the equivalent of like giving a girl your varsity letter in the 50s, but like he literally puts his puka shell necklace around her neck, which was like remarkable. Also, I wrote down specifically the scene where he's trying to, negotiate freedom in their relationship. And he says to her, I don't respond to limitations. Meanwhile, he's wearing a necklace with a prominent yin yang symbol on it, which I found incredibly loaded. It was like new age religion looking at Christianity and being like, I don't want to be limited by you, And
it all comes to a head when he brings her into like the garage and tries to make out with her, and apparently Rachel doesn't like to make out where there's dog food on the floor. I don't know really exactly what that's about.
Yeah.
But like it gets like next level, like with the grooming, and then he's like, "Wait, are you like a for real Christian?" And you're just like mind blown, not listening to her at all. Like it comes to a head.
I can't do this.
It's okay, just trust me.
There's dog food in here.
We can go somewhere else.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I thought you wanted to take it to the next level.
No, not like this. I'm in a commitment. I don't even know what we are.
You don't? After all that we've felt together?
Her dynamic with her high school semi-boyfriend Alex is a very interesting part of this movie. To be contrasted with, there's a character in the movie named Nathan Ballard. Okay, he's portrayed by Ben Davies. He is an extremely hot, tattooed, basically homeless 20-something who she finds who sneaking into her youth group basically to steal pizza. She ends up converting him. I just want to say I was like stalking a lot of people in the Columbine related world today. I found out that Nathan Ballard is a character based on a real man named Mark Pettit. He is a guy who he's really into like yoga and stuff. He has a very interesting story. His brand to this day is like that he was friends with Rachel Scott. Like he has a YouTube channel and a Facebook channel with like 3,000 likes, and he calls himself the real life Nathan Ballard, even though that's not his name. It's like his real name is Mark, and his thing is like they made this movie. I'm the person they wrote about in the movie, and like he posts videos of like him reading poems in front of like Rachel's memorial, and it's a very interesting character. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, no, it's a great character. I just wanted to put something out there about him.
Please.
Does he at all resemble John Morgan to you guys from the Fulci movies and Cannibal Ferox? The leading Cannibal Ferox and City of the Walking Dead, or City of the Living Dead, where he gets a drill through his head. John Morgan. He really looks exactly like John Morgan to me. And for someone, there's another reason that clicked. Because the director uses real footage of Columbine in the movie, And that's
Yes.
like, that's what Italian horror movies do. You know, like they use real footage, they interject to make the movie seem more real. And I'm like wondering, like, is our Christian director secretly a fan of Fulci and, you know, Cannibal Holocaust and all this stuff, you know? It's very
That's
possible.
so
We gotta track
true.
him down.
Wow.
That is so true. I mean, Scott, you've talked about Christploitation, as you call it, like quite a bit
That's
on
what
this
this
podcast.
is.
Like,
I mean, for sure. This is totally Christploitation.
yeah,
But it's also a little weaponized, I would like to say. There's a few things in here, a few behaviors that I saw that are very culty and would be very dangerous for Rachel to do. Like following John Morgan, Nate, into the homeless encampment. She's sort of like stalking for Christ.
yeah,
Yeah.
And that's scary. It's also flirty fishing, which is
yeah.
children
Flirty
of God.
fishing. Yeah.
Mhm,
So she's
mhm.
flirty fishing, and she uses emotional blackmail to get people to come into the church. So she's not all that great. She's naive, but these have all been things that are probably taught to her throughout life, that she's seen, that she's emulated. And I just was watching in horror that this little girl would go into a homeless encampment where she could get raped and murdered, possibly. Not that all homeless people do, of course, but I'm just saying it's dangerous. You know, you don't do those things.
Very
alone,
dangerous.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, it's like not a great thing to teach people to like stalk people, you know. But that's part of the Christian thing is proselytize, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something I really struggled. I've talked about this on the show before, but as a Christian teen, that's something I really struggled with, the idea of proselytizing, because I went on like a mini missions trip of sorts I grew up in Ohio, and I went on a mini missions trip of sorts to Chicago, where we were supposed to be on like Miracle Mile, just wandering around handing out pamphlets and trying to convert people. And within like the first hour of that, I was like, I am really not comfortable doing this. This feels super weird. This doesn't feel like what God wants me to do.
No,
And
it's not.
yeah, it's just it's weird. I don't know.
It's
Yeah.
It's weird. And for this movie to say, here's the Rachel character, she's, even though she has some troubles, she's still sort of perfect and we can emulate her. And here's something good she did. She took a chance on this guy named Nathan in the film. And in fact, she was so adamant about bringing him to the fold that she followed him, you know, without his permission to a very dangerous place in town. Like, this movie, made in 2016, mind you, is, you know, obviously we know it's a fictional movie, but still they're sort of tacitly endorsing this behavior. Like, this is a girl who really does what it takes to bring people to Christ. Maybe you could emulate her, you know. I think that's very
what they're
fucked
trying
up.
to say. It is fucked.
Yeah,
It is very fucked up.
it was.
And again, given in such a insidious way, because the film is so smooth and high production values and the acting is so good, it's very convincing, I think, you know,
Yes.
to an impressionable person.
Yes.
Yeah. Something else that really struck me with it early on was this is also a very, very loaded moment to me, and you kind of has to be raised in a certain way for it to strike you, I think. Just the way that she goes about recommitting her life to Christ. So she goes out to a very small party setting, 5 or 6 people. They're hanging out at the pool, drinking, just having fun. Really nothing beyond that. Just seemed like very innocent teens having fun, having a nice night with parents gone so they can get away with some drinking. They go home. That's it. They just had a nice, fun evening.
I have to add, they also didn't take their clothes off when they went in the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's unsupervised teenagers, not even just getting in their skivvies. They didn't take any clothes off, not even their sneakers. Who wants wet sneakers? That's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're watching a Christian propaganda movie. Okay, that I'll let it pass. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
no,
true.
no, those are great points. And at the time, the guy who ends up being kind of a shitbag in the end, is still being pretty reasonable at the time. He is obviously interested in her, but he doesn't push anything on her at the time.
Still grooms her. He gets her to do what he wants. She doesn't want to go
It's
in
true.
the pool.
That's
and
a good
he says,
point.
I don't want you to go in the pool, but I want you to want what I want, and I want you to go.
That is true. That is
So
true.
it's all throughout the whole thing. There, he's supposed to be a mentor, not making out with her and stuff. Like.
Yeah, true.
No, it's true.
You're right. It is insidious from the start. When she goes home, though, her mom can smell that she's been around cigarettes and that she has alcohol on her breath. She's buzzing. And she's so disappointed by her. She grounds her until they're going to their aunt's house that summer, which I'm guessing from how she said it is like 2 or 3 months away or something. It seemed like a really long time. And then rather than being like, oh, sorry that I did that around you and got caught or whatever, or I don't know what, just doing the rigmarole of, oh, so sorry, I'll never do it again. It strikes her so strongly and she feels so much guilt that she recommits to Christ because of it. And you really have to have like that certain type of guilt in place and be so sure that like the thing is in most areas of Christianity, they say that all sins are equal. But I found by growing up in the evangelical church, they do not treat it that way at all. Like if you're doing anything that's like seen as like just drinking with other kids, for example, that is weighted much more heavily than something else would be.
Sure.
I think that since this is made mostly for Christians to watch who are already coming from this culture, you would automatically, once you see them drinking, no matter what's happening, you'd be like, oh, they're bad.
This is
They're
bad.
doing something
Yeah,
bad.
Yeah. Just, I mean, even like Nate, when he gets converted over, is like, are you kissing him? And he's like freaking out, like just by kissing him. That's like so intense, and it's like, we never think anything of it. It's like, huh? Like teenage kids kiss everybody all the time,
Right.
without thinking twice about it,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, like he's really taking advantage of you. It gets really pretty crazy.
Yeah, it really is. Some obviously, like so much to cover in this film. I think we should definitely spend some time talking about the portrayals of Dylan and Eric in this film, of the two, the murderers, the Columbine shooters. I'll start by just pointing out that they are also hot in this film, which is great. There's also, hey, listen, listeners, if you're this type of person, there's a lot of Dylan and Eric homoerotic fan art that you can find online. So, or you could just watch Gus Van Sant's Elephants, which is my favorite school shooter movie, because we get a nice like make out in the shower scene with the shooters. Very nice.
Joey and I had fangirls at Chiller that would say like, we want to see you and you guys making out together. We were like, huh?
Wow. That's so cool.
It was very funny. Yeah.
I get it. I do. I really do. So, that's just one thing to start. It's still, this movie still falls into like the Twilight or Teen Wolf or whatever trap where like every single character has to be hot. I just want to point out before we just like talk about them in general, one of my favorite moments was, I don't even remember what scene they were in, but like movie just cuts to a teacher being like, and Hitler wanted to exterminate all the Jews. And then like you can see Eric like all of a sudden like his eyes start like narrowing a little and is like a smile forms on his face, and you can see him his mind working and being like, all right, like something I can get into here.
It's not even that he says the Jews, he's saying like the weak and the like idiots. I forget what he says exactly.
Everybody.
But it's immediately following being bullied by these big dumb jocks. I mean, that's obviously how they were supposed to be portrayed the moment before.
And teacher, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the teacher didn't seem to be like admonishing anybody about it. Like he was just like, oh, he's doing, you might want to get involved.
It's just a thing that could be done.
Like Nazi class and Columbine was a thing.
Yeah, right. And I actually thought at that point they were going to at least attempt to separate it to an extent where they would maybe give one of the shooters some benefit of the doubt and not just make them both completely evil. Sure. But no, they definitely from that point on just cut it to the two of them like in their lair together every time, like being villainous.
Yeah,
right.
Watching manga.
Right.
Because that'll make you kill, making death pacts,
Yeah.
But there's so many weird similarities to Duck, and it's probably because it's just, organic to the story. But watching it, I'm just like, did they watch Duck and say, oh, we're going to do the polar opposite of that?
Right.
We're going to make the killers cookie cutter and give everybody else death, because that's, it's just the polar opposite of the movie that I made. Totally. It's very odd watching it.
They owe you a check.
And then there's even the class with the TV and the dry board in the back. There's one black kid.
Yes.
Yep.
Just like in my movie.
Yeah.
Only one black kid, and the whole thing with her, with the mentally challenged guy, she's gonna take him out on a date.
You want to do something this weekend?
With who?
With me. And go see a movie or something Friday?
We go on a real date?
Yeah. Sure. Have you ever been on one?
Oh yeah, lots of them.
I didn't know you're such a player.
With my mom.
Got it. I'm sorry I'm not your mom.
You're prettier.
You are a player.
It's seriously patronizing.
Very weird.
Yeah.
But it's similar to our Bible girl feeding the retard in our
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
And she's
Totally.
So, but just polar opposite. So weird.
But interestingly, too, in your movie, Bible Girl will be a little judgmental if people don't respond the way that she wants them to. Which, watching your movie the first time, I was, thinking I wasn't actively thinking about this, but it's a little over the top. It's obviously supposed to be satirical in that moment. But then in this movie, I'm Not Ashamed, she is more judgmental. Anytime she's in a party scenario around other friends, she's just you're doing it wrong, basically.
Yeah, she's slut shaming her friends.
Uh-huh.
It's girl, why are you there?
Yeah. When she meets that guy the first time at the pool, she's basically I can never be fake like they are. Not saying they're fake. I'm just not a social plastic person. And you're wow. You just met this dude and you're already just completely shitting on your best friends.
I'm not like my friends.
What do you mean?
I can't really be fake.
And they are?
No. No, I didn't mean it like that. We've been best friends since elementary school. It's just, look at them. All the guys want them. But I want the guy. I want to want what I am, and not the fake version of what I think. I want to think that they want to think that I am.
Interesting.
I'm not a social plastic person.
Yeah, she finally gets the guy alone by the pool. There's two lines that she says right next to each other. She says, I'm not like my friends. First thing she says, immediately follows up with, I'm not a social plastic person. Which is girl, why are you hanging out with these people? Why are you there? If you just go to a party and stand there and just look around, glaring at everyone, it's stay home, go to youth group. I just don't understand. Why is she there? It was very strange.
That is not just a regular space, but it is so regular and established. It has a sign on the building out front, proper lettering on the building. Because when I was in youth group in high school, we did have a warehouse space that we used twice a week. But that was a multi-purpose use space. To have your own full-time thing like that is there's a lot of other Christian kids you can be friends with, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rachel then throughout this time, we're falling in love with her character. We're going through her life, and she has a bunch of interesting characteristics that are obviously cribbed from her journals, some of which I read this morning. She, first of all, the script references things directly written from her journals. It also does this amazing thing where I guess one of her trademarks is drawing flowers. She just draws the same rows over and over again. And at one point, the moment when her drama teacher, who's played by Christian singer Jackie Velasquez, looks over at her art and goes wow, Rachel, that's amazing. And then the camera looks at it and it's just an eye with a couple teardrops coming from it. It's like, I'm sorry, it is not good. It's not a good drawing. I'm sorry.
And what's scary, that drawing is the 13 tears. She's predicting the 13 victims. So she's touched. Yeah, she's touched by the divine. That's part of her martyrdom.
A prophetess.
Rachel, that's amazing. What is it?
Just something I was inspired to draw. It's not finished.
It's my tears. 13 tears. Why 13?
I don't know yet.
Rachel, I see a bright future ahead for you.
I'm gonna make a difference in the world. Somehow.
Rachel, I have no doubt you will.
It's so creepy. So she draws these 13 tears, and they're like, "What is that?" She's like, "13 tears. I don't know. Whatever." I read the script, So then when they all die, she's got this drawing here that sort of predicts them, and that's another thing, like with the movie, is that everybody kind of comes down on her for being too churchy, right? And at the very end of the movie, they're all like crying, putting flowers on her car, and like converting to Christianity, if they haven't been, like her little slutty bird,
Yeah.
So it's like just really insidious. Really so makes you want to run to church.
And the movie ends with that note too. Like her final journal entry is dedicated to the 13 victims, and it's like, but she obviously didn't dedicate that. So what the fuck are you talking about?
Yes. So yeah, the journals you can read. I digitally borrowed it from the LA Public Library this morning and skimmed through it. It's called The Journals of Rachel Scott. Randomly, the family hired a ghostwriter to work with, and what the ghostwriter does, this is even spelled very specifically in the foreword of the book, the ghostwriter takes her journal entries and then synthesizes them to write her story from the first person. It's written like, "Hi, I'm Rachel. I love going to drama club." Also, every chapter ends with discussion questions. Like, do some like doodles that remind you of God's role in your life. It's basically like it's like a youth group study guide. It's very strange. But yeah, like this is just to say that specific moments from her journal are very important in the movie. Maybe the funniest scene, of which I'm going to put the entire audio clip in this conversation right now, is when she says,
"You're not going to be a beer chugging, pot tripping, cigar puffing, drug dealing Christian?"
No, I'm a God-loving, Satan-slamming, Jesus-freaking, world-changing Christian warrior for Christ.
Oh, that's tight.
That was the laugh out loud moment.
It was incredible. Incredible.
Oh my God.
They just impromptu do some slam poetry in the coffee shop where she works with Nathan, and it's just like, yeah, that was one of the this generally sophisticated movie. Even though if you've watched, if you're someone with film interests such as all of ours, like you watch it and you're like, this is fucking insane. But that was a moment where it really like sort of jumped the shark, and it was like, no, actually, everyone who made this is a psycho. Yeah, it's they still couldn't let the mask stop the mask from slipping a little bit, but what other like best parts from the movie, or just like topics in general? I mean, it's so many, like, very loaded film.
One of my favorite parts is when she got shot, obviously, but that's the only time you get to see her cleavage. So they really put the sex and violence right together. Like at that moment, I was like, yes, like they got it right. Like I think the director's into horror films, man.
Yes.
And then of course, right after, I mean, this goes hand in hand with one of my favorite moments, which is as soon as she's shot, what else do we need to see? That's the only character we care about, right?
Yeah.
Cut to
the whole thing is done.
Yeah, cut to the news footage, then cut to a memorial for her, specifically for her.
For only her. Yes.
Yeah, typical Christian exploitation that doesn't want to go crazy and be murderous, like a Lifetime movie or something.
Yeah, because I was wondering the whole time. I was like, this movie's almost 2 hours. Like, how are they going to handle this whole shooting? And they just didn't. They chose not to.
Yeah, but the couple of gunshots you see are pretty realistic, minus blood. But you see the squibs go off, and it's pretty brutal, you know, and you see the cleavage, and then you put the gun to her head, and you're like, oh. But the other one little quick shot of Dylan and Eric, they're shooting bowling pins, which is exciting because they did go on a bowling trip that morning.
Oh, right.
Apparently, I read I read a big portion of a Columbine book yesterday and this morning, and apparently bowling was a big thing for Eric, and like there is actually they did test some of their guns on bowling pins. That is actually something from
That's too funny.
So it's, I guess that's interesting. They went that morning. I didn't know that, but yeah, apparently bowling was like a big hobby of Eric Harris specifically. That was like something he cared about.
And the other thing about Eric and Dylan in this movie, that they are pretty much cookie cutter, but they are functional in one scene where they're making their videos, and they're like, you better wish you had done something about this, like that you checked on us or something like that. Like they make some kind of comment because the parents don't care about them, and that's sort of saying, like, on the flip side, like, oh, okay, well, if the parents did check in on them, maybe they would have figured out their kids were psychos and going to kill the school. So it sort of says, like, anybody who's non-Christian or non-conforming should be surveilled.
Yeah,
it's pretty creepy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Very crazy.
I'm glad you thought of that, because when they were showing that video, all I could think about was like, do I need to purchase this Blu-ray immediately? So in hopes that there is behind the scenes where they show this video in its entirety.
Yeah, like their home movie was great.
Yeah, how much did they actually produce out this home movie? I wonder.
Of the basement tapes, the famous basement tapes.
Yeah.
How did the I'm Not Ashamed crew do method filmmaking and recreate like all 4 hours of the infamous lost basement tapes? Right. Okay, I'm so like Columbine pilled right now. I didn't know that they destroyed all the basement tapes. Like they will never be seen. Like, isn't that crazy? Like
that sounds it's right in like alliance with the conspiracies around Columbine.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like, there was stuff that was shown to reporters, and we have like access. It's pretty easy to find access to a lot of the transcripts and description of the basement tapes, but beyond that, they were never released, which I don't know, maybe if Columbine had happened a couple years later or a decade later, like that would be no question, like it would just be available. But, I guess the concern, or so they said, was that they thought it would inspire copycats. Of course, literally there's one mass shooting a month ever since then. So it's like moot. But it's crazy. I mean, it's just like, so it's like between you getting arrested for, maybe symbolically, but still, you getting arrested for making Duck, Dylan and Eric, they're never showing their movie that they made, and then like YouTube banning the trailer for I'm Not Ashamed, which I think is fucked up. It's a stupid movie, but like, come on, YouTube, like play the trailer. Like that's stupid,
Yeah, really.
Yeah, no. I mean, they played the Duck trailer, so.
Yeah. Duck 1, I'm Not Ashamed 0. But like what, I mean, maybe we've answered this a bunch, but like, Columbine to this day, what is it? Like it freaks everyone out.
The social pecking order in high school was a toxic environment. And I feel that from the young people that I encountered at some of the jobs I went to, they are way more inclusive now, and as well as the workplace. Like I was at GAF a couple of years ago, and they had Pride Day, and I was like, "What? Like that's a thing?" I had no idea that they did that in the workplace, And like in the future they should be doing that in schools, So like, just being inclusive is super important, and to be self-aware. And little kids aren't self-aware; they have to be taught to be mindful, Because we're human beings, and we all want to thin out the path because we're creatures all inside. And anybody that's different could be threatening, or, what have you. And it just plays out like Lord of the Flies, like in my high school. It's like terrible. Like I said, get the shit kicked out of it and stuff, So I when I was in high school, I even thought, God, I'd love to kill some of these kids. They're horrible, you know?
Yeah, of course.
So if you teach people to be inclusive and tolerant, and you know, you don't have to hang out with each other all the time or anything, but just like tolerate everybody as best you can, you're going to have a less toxic environment where you can actually sit there and learn and learn social skills, especially for the kids who don't really have the best social skills. If they're not being beat up, then they'll be able to interact more. And by the end of the 4-year prison term, they'll, you know, be able to go on the outside without coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just seems that that's really what needs to be talked about. And it's happening slowly, but it didn't happen right after Columbine. Definitely.
Certainly not.
Yeah. No, those are really good points.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the media especially did everything they can to just like, you know, to just play to the stereotypes of what happened and just reinforce it all over again. Yeah, I would like to. I think for the most part, I agree with you. I think from what I can observe, just anecdotally, that's the way things are too. I wonder if it also, some of that has to do with how like the internet has flattened all subculture, and is there even like a true like subculture anymore? Like the Columbine is so loaded because of, you know, there's the so-called trenchcoat mafia, you know,
Right.
and the fact that they were playing Doom and they thought that it was like a religion as portrayed in I'm Not Ashamed. They're playing a violent video game and being like, wouldn't it be cool if we did this in Columbine, right?
Oh, that moment was crazy.
If only this was Columbine. Bam!
Maybe it could be.
You're sick, man.
You're the one who brought it up.
I wasn't serious.
They just directly made that. Like literally they're playing video. It just cuts to them playing a first person shooter. And one of them says, now, if only this was Columbine. And then they like look at each other and like, that's that.
But, you know, I mean, hey, nowadays you can be a professional gamer, you know? That's like a career. You can be a YouTuber. Everyone's a computer geek now.
Or you can do like government sanctioned drone operation.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so many careers available to a gamer nowadays that there weren't at the time. Hey, I actually wrote down in my notes, literally the first thing in my notes is Rachel Scott would have been a TikTok star today because she embodies this perfect kind of like, even the styling in this movie, like the styling was so crazy. Like she was super cute and had straight hair, but like wore a bucket hat. And that was her sort of being like eclectic and like, you know, thrifting and creative and stuff. And it's like, you know, TikTok is sort of like every kid just does a mood board of what they like. I mean, Dylan and Eric were doing Natural Born Killers mood board. Like that's like literally documented that's what they were really into. They referred to the shooting as NBK when they were planning it. That was like what they were going to do. But still, maybe, you know, now everyone's a computer geek. So maybe computer geeks don't have to, you know, shoot up their school. I don't know.
I don't know, but it seems like they're not stopping.
Yeah,
that is true. That's the thing. They're not stopping.
They're not stopping. There's more than there were.
That was something that somebody pointed out to me at the beginning of the pandemic. They're like, well, at least there can't be school shootings right now. I was like, Jesus, that is bleak.
True.
But true.
Yeah. Zoom shootings.
Yeah. Has there been one yet? Maybe we could be the first tonight. So again, I randomly went, I guess this is now a true crime podcast, which I've been avoiding since its like inception, but I was like going on Columbine message boards today. I found like the official like Columbine shooting like not fan, but just like interest message board. And this isn't quite relevant, but would you believe that at least 2 members of the Columbine message board went on to do school shootings of their own? The sticky thread in one of the subforums is like, so guys, another one of our members did a school shooting.
Oh, no.
Seriously.
Wow.
Seriously. It was so crazy. It wasn't one that I had never heard of. It was, ColumbineMassacre.forummotion.com thread, another forum member who committed a murder/suicide.
So the FBI is onto that, I would assume.
It's possible. I mean, we would hope so. I mean, it's a Forum Motion hosted, message board here. So I would hope someone's part-time job is to look at this. But I don't know. 20 plus years, 21 years now since the Columbine shooting. We certainly haven't learned how to prevent a shooting. We don't really know any answers. Like we can look at the aftermath. Christians have their all anyone really has is their story, right? Their narrative of the situation. And this is the Christian narrative.
And they weaponize it. So they use it to demonize certain things that are not in any way demonic. And miss the point of, maybe being more inclusive or, just more education, really.
I agree. Maybe this is a good time to give our closing thoughts and rate the film. Again, just because there's so much here, I want to invite, did anyone have something they thought to mention before I get into our wrap up segment?
I do have two more quick things to mention.
Please.
One is that Rachel goes to sleep in a shirt that says police on it and not like the band. It's like police department font, if you can imagine that.
About that.
She's the God police. She becomes a warrior for Jesus.
That's true. Yeah.
That was so crazy. I forgot about that.
Her almost suicide. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. She almost commits suicide, sort of contemplating. And she says, what does she say? What's really weird is that in that scene, she sort of emulates the killers because it's sort of what they believe too. And she says her suicide's going to be a homicide that the world created.
Wow.
No one cares. Not even God. It isn't suicide. I consider it homicide. The world you have created has led to my death.
So there's a lot of, it's basically saying we all have the same internal fight here with our society and ourselves, but you can do something good with it, which is be Christian, or you can do something horrific and shoot everybody.
Yeah.
Or something horrific and wear black, maybe.
Right.
As simple as that,
Yeah. I couldn't help but notice the parallels between her shirt that said police on it and Eric's shirt I can't remember which teen wore which shirt, but there's the famous shirt that says wrath on it and the other one that just says natural selection, which are both pretty documented. But in this movie, Rachel was given a word of her own to wear, and it simply said police.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating styling.
Incredibly fascinating. And one last, actually, back to how we're just talking about how the movie's rewriting certain things as it sees fit, even within the same movie. I liked towards the very end when her friends are remembering her, they say, Rachel never judged. And it was yeah, she did a lot during the movie. Did you see the rest of the movie that you are still making? I was already accepting that you're rewriting some facts here and there, but you're rewriting your own. Anyway, one huge thing that I noticed that has to do with both I'm Not Ashamed and Duck the Carbine High Massacre is that Duck the Carbine High Massacre actually has more biblical passages in it than I'm Not Ashamed.
That's true.
You have a Bible passage on screen to open it, which to us is a big sign of a Christian movie, generally speaking. And then also about an hour into it, Bible Girl is repeating back a passage from Matthew. So that's two more passages than they cover in I'm Not Ashamed.
Yeah, Duck is a more scripturally based film. It just is true.
I didn't even think of that. That's great.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I did. That's another interesting thing about the Rachel Scott story is that it is a Christian story without being a biblical story. And I think that that's sort of what makes it popular fodder for pop culture ministry because I read the Bible a lot. I think the Bible's great. But it's easier to not do it. It's even among Christianity, it's easy to just be well, these are the rules, and we have more of a pop culture. Nowadays, our Bible is pop culture, so it's we have the Rachel Scott story telling us to stand up for our faith. We don't really need to have a reference for it. You don't really need to know that. Just read her journals where she draws roses and eyes and tears and be this is
actually
the new Bible.
Ash. You know all you need to know for reference: Christian Girl Autumn.
Christian
it's
Girl
totally
Autumn.
a Christian Girl
Yes.
Autumn movie.
This is a very Christian girl. Are you familiar with this concept, Bill, of Christian Girl Autumn? It's sort of like a named like internet meme aesthetic that people talk about. Especially we have friends, fellow semi-ironic Christian artists online. They have this page called I Need God in Every Moment of My Life. And they're essentially an Instagram meme account, but they're a lot more than that too. They're kind of like an ongoing art project, but they sort of identified Christian Girl Autumn, which is like girls with beautiful straight hair, like holding cups of Starbucks coffee, like frolicking in like autumn leaves. You know, it's like an aesthetic. It's just them naming an aesthetic that's existed sort of pop culturally for a long time. And this movie was very, even though The Fateful Day was April, this movie felt very Christian Girl Autumn to me.
It's also the best rom-com ever.
It really is. There's a lot of star-crossed lovers in this one.
It's true.
I don't know why she didn't like. I'm sorry, the hottest guy in the movie by far, Nathan Ballard character. Like I was like, I'm looking him up on IMDb, and he's only done Christian stuff. Ben Davies. His bio says something kind of. I'm sure he didn't write it, but oh wait, he was the son of a successful model. Well, there you go. But it says Ben was blessed with both striking physical features and a strong physical body. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I did. I was looking up a little bit of this stuff. You know, just Pure Flix is like a streaming service for the wholesome Christian movies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the two production companies that Big Film Factory in Nashville is also the same thing. They only make these types of films. And then Visible Films is like the European branch of it. So this stuff gets disseminated all over the world frighteningly enough.
Oh yeah. PureFlix is huge. PureFlix is real big.
We should make one.
Yes.
You know, we make a lot of money.
Yep.
We'd have to change our identities and then come out after it's really popular as a bunch of Satanists or whatever. It would be awesome.
It would be pretty cool. I mean, to be honest, Bill, you know, we at Boys Bible Study, one of our big long-term goals is to make our Christian film debut. We very might well need your consultation.
When we get off this podcast, I'll send you a little treatment. Something. Ooh,
okay.
Amazing.
You might like.
Amazing.
Cool. Yeah, I actually, as soon as we stop recording, I have a lot more things to say about that.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. And everybody out there, please go to Vinegar Syndrome and find the partner label that is Saturn's Core and buy all the movies. They're all shot on video, wackadoo movies, and you'll love them. And Mail Order Murder and Duck are on there. Duck is really offensive, so it's really good for mom.
Yes.
For a birthday present or Mother's Day.
Yes. Yeah. Watch. Scott and I last night did a double feature of I'm Not Ashamed and Duck. And like, I think that's how both films are meant to be seen. It was a really good double feature. So nice. I recommend everyone watching, everyone listening, do that. You know, we really enjoyed watching I'm Not Ashamed with our guest today, Bill Hellfire. I think it's time, guys, to give this the official Boys Bible Study rating. Everyone out there is wondering, what did we, the preeminent Christian film cultural critics, have to say about this? As for me, like, who is now just completely fascinated with the Columbine tragedy, like 21 years too late, because I honestly I don't really have the head for true crime. I think it's scary. I like fucked up stuff, but I like fucked up movies. You know what I mean? I don't want to see people like die or anything. But you know, I for the show, I've now read like multiple Columbine books and watched like really scary police footage. So I'm just a true crime head now, like everyone else. So I'm going to have to give this movie, 10 out of 10 bullet riddled bowling pins. That's right, a strike. This film bowled a perfect strike as far as I'm concerned. It was a banger. Congrats to all involved.
This movie moved me in ways I was not anticipating. My jaw dropped many times throughout. I was shocked, dismayed, excited. I loved it. I loved the movie, and I'm going to have to give it 3 out of 3 2000s EDM songs at a 1999 high school party.
It's true. What was with the EDM soundtrack?
I don't know.
As an EDM fan, as a bit of a raver myself, that's not how music sounded in the 99. It's just that's not how it sounded.
We missed a lot of things. Like in the prom, there was the one kid had a faux hawk, and I was like, not in 1999.
No,
right?
Never.
Also at prom, there was one dance scene where this song was kind of like not quite a slow dance song, but not really a regular dance song either. And depending on the angle of the shot, people were either slow dancing or regular dancing to a pop song.
Bill, what did you think?
Okay, well, I think this is one of the greatest Christian propaganda films of all time. I think that this is a film that will help convert lots of people to Christianity. And in that's fantastic. But insidious as it may be, it is also one of the greatest tease leading up to girls being shot and showing their cleavage fetish movies I've ever seen in my life. And for that, I give it 10 out of 10 hard-ons.
Yeah, this movie, it will turn you on. And not
it'll turn you on to Jesus and
it really will. This is a remarkable film. Bill, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. It was a lot of fun. And as he already said, but do check out Vinegar Syndrome. They're currently hosting a collection of the Saturn Score audio and video films, and it's a great way to purchase these singular films, including Duck, the Carbine High Massacre, which we highly recommend. Also Shatter Dead, which we just covered on the show like a couple weeks ago. We love that film. As for us on the Boys Bible Study side, before we go, our plugs. Of course, if this is your first time here, please check out boysbiblestudy.com to find links to everywhere you can find the show online, all of the podcast apps and all that. If you really like what we do and you want to support us and get access to bonus episodes, which we do every other week. So if you sign up at patreon.com/boysbiblestudy, $5 a month or more, you can have new Boys Bible Study content every single weekend. We release on Sunday mornings. Also, thank you so much to our special patrons on the $20 tier, our patron saints, who we get a shout out at the end of every episode. Thank you so much, Nicole, Marissa, Jeff, Jane, Kara, and Alexandria. We can't thank you enough. Our outro music is Oh My God by Mary. From all of us here at Boys Bible Study, myself, Ash, my co-hosts, Scott and Julian, our guest today, William Hellfire, we would like to say, peace be with you.
And also with you.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your love in me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when you enter me. Every day you take